and welcome back. It's Tracy at For the Love of Stamping, and welcome to my craft room. Today I'm going to show you a nice sponging technique using glycerin. Glycerin makes your classic inks go smoothly over the surface of your cardstock and not leave streaks behind. So just to get started here, let me just show you what I actually bought. I went to our drugstore and I bought the Life brand glycerin. You don't need a lot of this. In fact, you need very little of it, no more than the size of a pea. I'm going to place that onto a clear block and we're going to use inks to sponge in our color. So the colors you're going to need to create this will be the Saffron and the Mango Melody, which will be used in the for the moon. And then for the night sky, we're going to use Seaside Spray, Balmy Blue, and Night of Navy. I have some sponges already set to go, and I need 5, so 1 for each color. And I've just marked each of them, and I put a G on them because I just want to make sure that as I'm going forward, if I'm going to use them again, that I know that I had used them with glycerin. For the rest of the card, to do the silhouette, you're going to use the Friendly Silhouette dies, and we're going to use the cattails for that. We'll have some black cardstock, as well as some white and Night of Navy. So the white measures 5 1/4 by 4. The black is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and then the base is your basic 8 1/2 by 11 cut in half at 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 and folded and scored in the middle. So to get started, we will take a circle punch, and I've already done this, but I took my 2 1/2 inch circle punch and I punched out a Post-it note. I'm going to place that into the center at the bottom of my cardstock with the sticky side on the surface of the cardstock. I'm just going to center that pretty much right down at the bottom in the middle, and that will create the mask so that I can start sponging in my first layer of color, which is the Seaside Spray. So I've used this a few times, so it's a little bit loose right now, so hopefully it doesn't bunch up on me as I'm going along. So we'll start with the Seaside Spray, and what you need to do is I took the bottle of glycerin and I dropped a little bit on here, and like I said, it's probably no more the size of a pea. In this case, it's actually spread out a little bit because I was using it earlier. So all I do is I take the edge of my ink and I blot it onto the corner of my block. And we're going to take the sponge, and using the sponge, I'm going to lightly dab just a little bit of the glycerin. I'm going to try and get that all over the surface of the sponge, and I'm going to start mixing it in with the ink. And I'll just start sponging over the surface. And the nice thing is like I said, what it'll do is it'll allow you to sponge in that color and not have all the streaks that you would normally have. So I'll take a little more glycerin and I'll just start sponging it across the surface. I find the more of the glycerin that you use, the better the color. And if I don't have quite enough, I'm going to add a little bit more of the Seaside Spray onto my clear block. Pick up a little bit more of the glycerin, rub it into the ink, and start sponging around the edges. I think it makes a difference to the sponges that you're using. You want to have a good quality sponge in order to get that ink to blend. And I'll take a little more of my ink. The lighter ones tend not to go as far as the darker ones, so we want to make sure that we have enough of it to cover the surface. Get a nice smooth color to it. I'm more concerned around the edge of the moon because I'm going to come in over with my other colors, with the darker blues. And that will blend over top of the Seaside Spray. All right, let's just finish this off here. And in between, as I'm doing this, I'm going to wipe off my block so that I can add my next color. So I just take a damp cloth, I'll wipe that off, and I'll move on to my next color, which is going to be the Balmy Blue. So again, we'll take just a little bit of glycerin. Gotta be careful because it can come out really quick, and I don't want it to come out too fast, nor do I want it to be on top of my image that I've already sponged. And I'll just put a little drop. Ooh, that's more than I wanted, of course. I knew that was going to happen. So let me just wipe off the edge here so I don't get that all over the place. I just need to be careful that when I pick up the glycerin, I just take a little bit of it. Too much of it, and it's going to make it really soft, and you'll find that it'll take longer. I mean, the cardstock that is, and you'll find it'll take a little longer for it to dry. And what I want to do is to have it dry relatively quickly, but if it doesn't, I can always set it aside and I can use it and I can assemble my card later. So I have one here with the glycerin marked on it for the Balmy Blue. Pick up a little bit of glycerin, rub it around my block a little bit, like so that it kind of covers the surface, and then just start dragging that into the Balmy Blue ink, like so. I'm going to start off on the edges here, and I'm going to bring that through the top, and I'll just keep blending that ink down as I go. Like so. And when I come in with the Night of Navy, it's going to be really, darken it down, and it's going to look super, super pretty. So we'll just continue with that color until I get the look that I want. Keep picking up ink, a little tiny bit of glycerin. I kind of move it around on the block to help move that ink through the surface of the sponge so that I have a more even amount of ink. And I'll just add a tiny bit more. Touch more of the glycerin. Rub it around on the block again. Make sure that I pick up enough of the ink and not too much of the ink. And I'll just come back through the bottom and just fill in these spaces. All right, I think I'm ready to add the Night of Navy now to this. Just bring it up like that, and then we'll wipe off our block again. Get rid of all the Balmy Blue ink. And now I'm going to pick up the Night of Navy ink and add that to the block, and then to the front or the surface of the card to finish off the night sky. You'll find too, as this dries, that it smooths out even a little bit more. And I found that might be just a little too much ink. So I'm just going to be careful. I don't want all that blue just yet. I probably will end up using a lot of it, but that's too much to start. So let's ink up our sponge, pick up some of that nice Night of Navy, and blend it into the surface of my block. I'm going to start off the edges, and I'm going to bring that down this way. Coloring from top to bottom in this case. A little more of the glycerin, a little more of the ink. Move it around on my sponge so that it's relatively even across the surface. And this is where you play. You just keep adding the navy until you get the look that you really want on the surface. The more you put on it, the darker it gets, the darker the night is. But that's completely up to you as to how much you want to put onto it. So you can see I'm now really starting to bring that navy down because I want it to have it a lot darker, make it look more like nightfall. And because I have a fair amount of glycerin on this sponge now, I'm not actually dragging it through my pool of glycerin that I had in the corner. I'm just trying to pick up the ink and blend it into the sponge. Yeah, I figured I'd use all the ink, but like I said, you don't want to use that all at once because it would be way too dark, and it's easier to blend the color around when you have a little bit less on on your sponge to start. I like to have these corners nice and dark as well. Okay. All right, so we'll just keep sponging that around. I might come back in with the Balmy blue now and just sort of do a little more blending without picking up the edge of my Post-it note. I don't want to have a blue moon, at least not tonight. I'm gonna make it nice and yellow. And then we'll add our images that I've pre-cut with my scan and cut out of the designer series paper, the Playful Pets. Such a cute set of designer series paper. It's something you're probably going to want to have some of. You can fussy cut it easily if you don't have a scan and cut machine. Sadly, not all of the images have dies, but we do have the pet dies that cut out some of the those cute little dogs and cats, but just not all of them. All right, so there we go. That gives me more or less the look that I wanted on the surface here. And all it's left to do is now to come in with the mango and the saffron. So I'm just taking this down a little bit around the edges here just to finish it off. You know, you can play with this forever, but like I say, with the glycerin, it just moves that ink around so much nicer, and it doesn't take that long to dry either. Now, before I get ink all over me, which I've been prone to do, I'm just going to wipe off my block. I'm going to get that out of the way. All right, so when we remove our Post-it note, we'll see that we've got this nice white space here for our moon. So I'm just going to shift my paper a little bit because I don't really want to have the blue in when I'm blending the yellow. Just in case, I just want to make sure that I don't pick it up by mistake, because that wouldn't be good. So I do have a little piece of tape here that I'm just going to hold that down with, keep it in place, and move my card over. Now, I had cut out, again, with the 2.5-inch circle punch, I took an old piece of pineapple punch cardstock, and I'm just going to use this as my template. So I'm going to lay that right on top, and I'm going to put it in a spot so that I just sort of see the edge of the blue. Hoping you can see this okay. I'll shift it just a little bit more just to make sure. Because I want to have as much of the, I want the color to match up as close as I possibly can. So I didn't do a Post-it note with this one, just because I found that this cardstock held its own pretty well. So I'm going to have to do the same thing with my glycerin, hoping not to drop too much on it. It's not easy. This is not the easiest thing to pour with. I guess I could take a syringe and pick up some that way maybe, and place it in the, drop it with a syringe. Maybe that would be a better idea. But for now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to ink up this. Now this one's going to be hard to see. You're not going to be able to see this ink very well because it's so light, but I do have a good amount on here. And so I'm going to take my Saffron sponge, dab in, get some glycerin, and start moving that through the ink, like so. All right, so let's line this back up, and let's start sponging that color in. Little hair in there, take that out of the way. So I'm just going to try and do the saffron in the center, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to use more of the mango around the outer edges. I wanted to have it sort of light in the middle. All right, how's that looking? Hopefully you guys are seeing okay here. And then just a little bit more like so. Okay, so for now, I think I'll leave that. Wipe off my block, and I'll grab the mango. Now you're gonna see the mango is very much like the Night of Navy, in that it will put a big amount of ink on my block, but I'll do the same thing where I don't pull all of it in at once. So you see how bright that is, right? All right, grab the mango one, take a little bit of the glycerin, bring it into the ink, and move it all around. And again, I'm going to start off the edge with this. I'm going to bring that in like so. And then I'll just start to really push that ink onto the cardstock. You see, I ended up getting a tiny bit of blue on my card when I was sponging. Not surprising. I think I'm going to leave a little bit right there to make it sort of lighter. Just leave that little bit white showing through. And I'll just keep coming in. Now, I'm not adding any more of the glycerin now. I'm just picking up the ink just to darken my moon. Now, a lot of this is going to be covered because of our silhouette that we're going to put down. So I'm really trying to ensure that I highlight the top that will be seen. And every time you do this is going to be different. You're going to find sometimes it's much, much darker. Sometimes it's much, much lighter. It's all dependent on, you know, what you want to do. I'll just take a little bit over the surface. There we go. All right, the big reveal. Let me get the ink out of the way. You'll see our moon. So I do have a little bit of a white shadow here, which I think I'm going to just try to cover up by bringing my template back in and grabbing the one that I had the mango on and see if I can come in and just darken that a tiny bit. Just because I don't want quite that much of a white ring showing. So we just keep adding. I'll bring in my one that I had the saffron with. Starting to fill in a little bit. May not be that dark, but that's okay. It's all different. Like I said, they're all going to look different. Add just a tiny bit more of the mango. See if I can just get right in there. There we go. It's looking good. Alrighty. Good. There we go. See, just filled it in that much more. Okay, I'm not going to worry about here because I know that that's going to be covered again with my silhouette. So let's tidy up the workspace a little bit since I've made a huge mess. Get stuff out of the way. And now let's flip over this. And then that way we've got a clean surface to work on. And so with this, I'm going to let it dry. It's still going to take a little bit of time, but I had done one earlier just for the sake of what we're doing. You can see how much darker my navy is. I really like the dark, but in this case, it's a little bit lighter, and that's okay. And so we'll start layering the pieces together. So I pre-cut my cardstock. I'm going to layer those on top of each other. And then I had cut out my silhouette and my kitties, and then we'll lay those on as well. And of course I put them somewhere nice and safe and I have no idea where they went. So let's see if I can find those guys. In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll start adhering these together, and then that way those pieces will be down. And then I'll come back in and finish in the kittens and the silhouette when once I've got this together. Okay, so I'm just going to use some snail, I think, on the back of this, or some Tombow. I like to have, because I'm only using a 1/4 or an 1/8 of an inch difference, I'm going to use the Tombow on the back. You'll notice it does do a little bit of a buckle, and the Tombow will help to adhere that down for us. So I'll put in a nice amount of Tombow in the corners here, like so. That will give me that motion or the ability to move it around. And then I'll add this here. All right, so now bring that in the black cardstock and just lay it down lightly so that I can start to play with it and move it around till I get it even on the black, like so. Looking pretty good there. I think I need to bring it down a bit at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to put my hand on it just to hold it down without rubbing it around, because if you rub it around, you'll find that you end up sliding that piece of cardstock, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that it just lays nice and flat. And then I'll add a layer or some more adhesive to the back of this piece and place it onto the Night of Navy. All right. Okay, so again, in the corners like so. Make sure you got your card going the right way so that your moon is at the bottom and not at the top. And then we'll slide this into place. Okay. And I'll hold that down till it sticks as well. Still not sure what I did with my little kitties. Oh, I just found them. So we'll let that dry. And while it's drying, we can assemble our silhouette of the cattails and the cats. So I did, like I said, I used the Playful Pets Designer Series paper, and I cut out some of the shapes of the cats already. So I'm just going to use these two right here. And all they're going to do is they're just going to tuck in behind the cattails so that they look like they're coming out from behind, like that. Okay? And then this guy will go right over on the corner here. Tuck him in, oops, backwards. Tuck him in like so. Okay, and so they will just sit on like that. And then this piece will just lay right down on top of here. And I'll use some Tombow to adhere this down so that it all stays in place. So I like to put them down ahead of time. And then I'll just take my Tombow, and I'm going to touch it across various spots, including on the cats. So on the cat tails, of course, right along the bottom as well. We want to make sure we have a good amount there so that it actually sticks to the card. Like so. And then I'm just going to dot various spots here of the cattails so that they stay down. Put some in the kitty as well. Oh, didn't want him to move. There we go. We can always play with it to move it around as well. All right, let's do that for now. I'm going to grab maybe some, I was going to grab some tweezers, but I think I can just pop it up here like so. My little kitty wants to move. I'm just going to flip it over. I'm not going to worry. We're just going to place that right down on top. And before I press it down, because one of my cats decided to fall out, I'm just going to get that in place like that. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to pick him up and tuck him right in the back here, like that. All right, so now these little guys are in place. Move this one over a little bit more, like that. All right, now I can come back in and add a little bit of Tombow behind those cats so that they stay down. I know I had some Tombow on some of these little cattails, so we'll push them down. And we'll flip this over. And we'll tuck in some Tombow at the back, like that, so that that one stays down. I'll just do one at a time. I don't want to get glue everywhere, but that will help to not only hold the cat down, but it'll also hold the cattails that are behind it down as well, and that will keep everything in place. All right, so now this little guy here, again, just lift it up like this. Grab our Tombow, put it in the back. A little bit on his tail, and then place him down and just hold it until it stays. All right, so that's how I made this card. That's how I've done all the sponging. I think he's turned out really cute. It's up to you what greeting you want to place on it. On my card, I used one from a new stamp set that's called Seniors, I think it's called. And it says, "It feels like we've been friends forever." When you're finished adding your greeting, you can come in with some shimmer paint, which I have here. I just got the Frost White. I'm gonna give it a quick shake. And you can use a toothpick or you can use whatever you have. I just happen to have these tiny little wands that I purchased from Amazon. And I'm gonna use that to just pick up a little bit of that shimmer paint and lightly touch them onto the surface here of the sky, so it just makes it look like little stars. And I'm just gonna put little dots across the sky, like so. And then once that's dry, it'll look like nightfall. Try not to make them uniform so that they're kind of all over the place, like so. Ooh, that was a big star. There we go. A few more in the background, some that look really far away, the smaller ones. And that's all there is to it. And there you have your sponged sky using glycerin. I hope you've enjoyed this technique, and I look forward to seeing you again in my craft room. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.